It is the Green Teamers. It is Sunday night. It is February 23rd. The Boston Celtics look as good as ever as they beat the New York Knickerbockers 118 to 105. Jason Tatum, almost his second triple-double. He was at 25 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. And the Celtics beat the Knicks for the third time this season. Boston is averaging 127 points in its 3 wins against the Knicks. They beat the Knicks by 23, by 27. They're up as much as 27 points today. Skaz, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Jay Stu. I've really been enjoying the post-All-Star break Celtics. They look like maybe the best version of themselves since last season. I thought today was just another Celtics taking care of business. The Knicks, they retool. They try everything. They've literally built this team to try and find mismatches with the Celtics to try and defend Jason Tatum. They went out and got Mikal Bridges, and I don't even know what you do at this point if you're the Knicks, because they were pretty close to full strength today, and the Celtics still, I know it got a little close late third, early fourth, but the Celtics rolled them, and that's what they've done every time they've played the Knicks this season.
I'll tell you why I didn't have an issue with the third quarter, and everybody's making a stink about the third quarter. I'll tell you why in a minute why I don't have an issue with their third quarter like everybody else does. But 2 things before we get there. One is I said a few episodes ago that the Celtics needed like a 10-game win streak. And last season, the Celtics won 11 in a row from February 3rd to March 3rd. They went 25-4 from February 3rd to April 11th. This was around the time that Jaylen Brown did the "Energy's about to shift" tweet, which is actually a numerology thing. It's not necessarily a energy in the building, like we're all getting along thing. It's a numerology thing, I think. But the other thing is the Knicks. You went with that group. You sold all of your assets for that group of losers, that group of jokers. Like,
I'm with you, Stu. And just to kind of emphasize that point, they went out and got a guy to be the Tatum stopper. Tatum this year against the Knicks, 25, 10 and 9, 37, 4 and 10, and 46 and 4. And then maybe my favorite stat coming away from the win today, this is from Justin Turpin. The Celtics have played the Knicks now 3 times. They have the times they've trailed the Knicks this season. The first matchup, the Celtics trailed for 29 seconds. The second matchup, they trailed for 0 seconds. Today, they trailed for 21 seconds. So in 144 minutes of basketball this season between the Celtics and the Knicks, the Celtics have trailed the Knicks for 50 seconds. So that is about as much of a mismatch as you could possibly get. The Celtics dominate the Knicks. There is no other way to put it. They have their number.
Yeah. They did all of that, and then they added the 2 wings, and then they added Karl Anthony Towns. That's what the Knicks did. The actual move that the Knicks should do is they should flip Karl Anthony Towns for like Anthony Davis, and then they have because Anthony Davis actually fits in better with what Thibodeau is doing with defense.
He just can't play as much as Tibbs wants everybody to play. Right. Tibbs just runs his guys into the ground.
You just have to turn injuries off, and then you're good, and then you're all set. Like, not a problem at all. So the Knicks, they're a joke. They're not going to be there at the end. And the Knicks, they lost by 37 to the Cavs the other night. So the Knicks are done. Thanks for coming. They tried. I do think it's interesting that Jaylen Brown was asked after the game about, how does it make you feel? Or, do you take it personally that these teams went out and they tried to add defensive-minded wings to guard you? He's like, yeah. And Gary Washburn's smart. He has to follow up why. It's like, I don't need to say why. That's smart thinking by Jaylen Brown, because Jaylen Brown knows that whatever he says is going to be held against him in the future, and he doesn't want that. There's a part of me, and I bet Joe Mazzulla is rooting for this, is Joe might be rooting for Jaylen Brown not to make All-NBA again, to be snubbed at something else, for Tatum to be snubbed at something else, so he can be like, see, they don't believe in you. And then they can use that as motivation to stick it right up the backside of the NBA again, which is actually going to lead to another point that I have about Jason Tatum later on in the show. But the third quarter things, guys, everyone's mad about the third quarter. Oh, they're shooting too many 3-pointers, right? I get it. In real time, I watch it, and I'm like, I'm frustrated by it. But the Knicks shot 6 of 9 from three-pointer. Nice. The Celtics, on the other hand, they shot 5 of 13. I went back and looked at them. NBA.com has this cool thing where you can just click on the shot made or the shot attempted or whatever. I actually, of the 13 shots, Porzingis open, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, White, Holiday, Tatum, Pritchard, Tatum, Pritchard. Of the 13, I only kind of had a problem with one of them, and that was the 32-footer from Jason Tatum with 3 on the shot clock. And that was one of the later ones, and it was a miss. But I'd rather not have Tatum shoot from 32 feet out with 3 on the shot clock. But that's because the Knicks had it figured out, and they were rolling at the moment, I think. But I didn't have an issue with the shot selection because I felt like most of them were open or open-ish. So, like, that's what the Celtics do. If they were all contested, yeah, I'd have a gripe with it. But the most important stat in the Celtics is 3-point attempts. That's how they won the title last year. That's how they're going to win more games than not this year. That's their philosophy. That's the NBA. You hawk up as many as you can. They keep doing that. They'll roll again as long as they make them. Make or miss league. I know that's boring. I know that's not sexy, but that's kind of how I feel about the thing. Like, if this is won before, this might win again, and they're just going to roll through it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We sat here, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago now, and we were like, yeah, they're still a juggernaut. They still look great, but they have mental lapses. The offense has been hit or miss at times. Holiday was out of rhythm. White was, up and down, kind of going through a little bit of a roller coaster period. And then we sit here post All-Star break, and they're rolling. Everything they're doing looks good. I thought how they started the game was really impressive. Porzingis hit a 3, Derek White hit a really tough layup, and then Drew hits a turnaround jumper with good defense all over him. If you're an opposing team, that's just deflating. You walk into the Garden and you have a 7'3" guy step out beyond the arc. Derek White makes a tough finish at the rim, and then Holiday, a guy who's he hasn't been bad by any stretch, but a guy that was up and down in the first half. It makes it look easy and hits one over Josh Hart or whoever it was, and the Celtics are up by 15 before you can even bat an eye. And that's who they were most of the year last year. We've seen less of it this season, but I thought today was very reminiscent of last year. And once again, they're playing defense. Is it, high intensity for 40 minutes? No, but they pick their spots. They defend well. I think they're playing more consistent defensive stretches through the course of games. And the Knicks have no answers. It's OG Anunoby, another guy they tried to bring in and be a difference maker. I think he had 10 points today or something like that. So it's just the Celtics and the Cavs are the Eastern Conference right now, and everybody else is just trying to play catch up.
I do think there was also a takeaway I had from post game where I guess it was yesterday during the media avail. There was a reporter, and I'm sorry I don't remember who asked Derek White like what's going on, or asked Joe Mazzulla about Derek White and what's going on, and it came up again this post game. And the basic premise of the question and the answer was Derek White was miserable the first half of the season, and now he's back to being loose, fun Derek White. And that's a big deal. And Jaylen Brown was also talking about this post game where he didn't feel well today and he's dealing with stuff. When you're dealing with stuff, it can work one of two ways. It can help you in your job performance because you just want to focus on that, or it increases your struggles and it distracts you from being the best that you can as an employee, as a person, as a player. So, like, the fact that Derek White's got his head clear and he's ready to roll is a good sign for everybody, because as important as Tatum and Brown are, they're the most important. All the role players doing their part, like Derek White, Holiday, Horford, Porzingis, like, those are the important things. I think Derek White's the third most important player on the Celtics.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think the quote was he said he didn't have his basketball joy, or he didn't have the joy he was used to having when he drove into the arena and was getting ready for these games. And I think that's a very honest answer, which I know people appreciate, but I think it's a very real answer as well, because Derek White loves basketball. Everyone sits at home and is like, I wish I could get paid to play basketball, but look, I like golf. I love to golf. If I golfed more than I ever did in my entire life, like Derek White has been doing, he played more basketball last season, playing into the finals, the Olympics, all those things. Eventually, at some point, you're like, all right, I just need a breather. I need a little break. And I think you saw it with Pritchard, with Porzingis. Like that little All-Star break, that was huge for some of these guys to kind of just mentally reset. It's a long season, and it's an even longer season for the Celtics than, 95% of the league the last 3 to 4 years. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, and now we're starting to see that they're locking back in. Jay Stu pointed this out a couple weeks ago. He said, just wait. It's
Just
gonna
wait.
happen.
They'll
They're
figure it out.
they're professionals, and
They'll
I
play
think
through things.
that's kind of the difference this season is they've earned that. They've earned a little grace. They've earned, hey, we're going to be there again. Just we're going to go through the motions at times, but at the end of the day, when nuts are on the table, the Celtics are ready to go, and that starts with Missoula and Tatum and Brown.
Jalen also mentioned we got to stay healthy, and he mentioned a bunch of times in the post game. So it's like, what injuries are being hidden right now? And that's kind of something to watch out for. I do want to answer this question to our chat box if you're watching live on YouTube or you're watching on the replay. Cuss78 says, if you're listening on the audio version, I'll read it for you. C's look good today. Do you think we, Cuss, apparently your number 78 on the Celtics screen teamers. Do you think we catch up for the number 1 seed? I think they're going for it. I think they want it. I think they're going to go for it. Yeah, I absolutely do. I think Missoula wants it. I think the team wants it. I think that they're within 6 games of Cleveland. I think they're going to try their damnedest to get there.
Really? See,
yeah, I do. I don't think that they're going to sacrifice health for it, but I think they're going to go for it. I think they want that number 1 seed. I think they want home court. I don't think they want a game 7 in Cleveland, and maybe Cleveland doesn't get there for the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think Missoula's got the ass for it. That's what I think.
I mean, I think Missoula has the ass for most things when it comes to winning basketball, but I almost hope from from a Celtics perspective that they don't go all out for it. I don't think it's as important as I know we mentioned this, but I don't think it's as important as it was, say, a year ago when they hadn't won the title, hadn't gotten over that hump. But they've been one of the best road basketball, best road playoff teams in NBA history over this Tatum and Brown stretch. So I'm not as concerned with the 1 seed because I think it's a 2-horse race. And if you get into a battle with Cleveland, it shouldn't come down to, home court in game 7. But I guess if you're of that belief that it's the Celtics and Cleveland and everybody else, that little edge, maybe then it is worth it. I could be talked into it.
Yeah. I don't think at the end of the day that it matters, like from our seats. I think it matters is like Missoula's like, no, I want you guys playing hard. I want you guys going for that. In Missoula's post-game press conference, he's always like disappointed in them for doing something, right? Like he's rarely happy, or if there is something to be happy about, quote unquote, it's like, it doesn't matter. We all die eventually. Like, oh, okay, all right, so we're doing that. Okay, no problem. All right, we'll figure it out.
That's Missoula. I mean, that's love him or hate him. He's consistent.
That's my coach. One little detail. I have some thoughts on the NBA All-Star game. Jason Tatum as how he's viewed around the league. And Skaz, you've got Skaz. You had
Torrey
something
Craig.
else. Torrey Craig. That's where I was going next.
Okay. You want to go first? Feel free.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I really like Torrey Craig. Almost surprisingly so. When they got him, obviously we've seen him play a ton. He's a very good shooter. I thought he was a, average defender, 34 years old. So I thought he was coming in maybe, you never want to say hobbled, but a 34-year-old in the NBA to play significant minutes and not be, LeBron or Durant or one of that is not. Usually those guys' legs, eventually you lose some juice, but I've been really, really impressed with Torrey Craig. He looks smooth out there. He looks really good defensively. Obviously, he's a very good three-point shooter. And this is a guy who was, with Denver for a while and was on some of those playoff teams in the early Jokic days, and then was on the Suns team. This is a guy that's played over 75 playoff games in the NBA. So this is a veteran presence, a guy who, I don't think he's won a title, but he's been there, knows what it takes, already seems to know his role. I've been really impressed with his media appearances as well. I saw Noah Dalzell tweet yesterday that they landed at the Friday night or something like that, or they got back late Friday, and he was at a YMCA Saturday morning, one of him and one other guy. So I've been really impressed with Torrey Craig as a whole. I think he was a really good addition, and Brad Stevens strikes again.
Torrey Craig, it looks like he was on the Suns team that lost to the Bucks in the NBA Finals.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, a guy that's been there. He's played playoff basketball at a high level.
And he played 19 games for Denver when they lost in the West Finals to the Lakers, it looks like, in the bubble. So Torrey Craig, if he's the Celtics' 8th guy, I'm not offended if he's on the court in the final 2 minutes of a playoff game. That's how I generally feel. Like high ass.
High ass. I mean,
High
he's
ass.
pretty tall.
I mean, that's high hipped, but
Yeah.
high ass. High basketball IQ. He's a pest defensively. He seems to be in the right spot on offense. He reminds me not of the Hall of Famer. He reminds me of like 97, 98-ish Bruce Bowen when he was playing for Rick Pitino. Just like does everything right, does those little things that you hated about Al Horford when he was somewhere else. And then I had to educate you on Al Horford years ago and tell you Al Horford was good. I had to do that. You're welcome, Boston. But he's got that little like pesky little like 8th, 9th man. He's going to be on the right spot. He's going to make the right play. He's not going to like if he's on the court last 2 minutes of a playoff game, I'd rather him be on the bench waving the towel like ML Carr. But outside of that, like I'm kind of okay with it. I'm comfortable with it. So like good move, Torrey Craig.
Yeah, and one other thing too, I think it's funny to see when a new guy comes in because Missoula has literally beaten almost into these guys that if you are Sam Hauser, if you are Peyton Pritchard, it doesn't matter. If you are open, shoot a 3-pointer. And it's funny to see Torrey Craig has gotten some what are basically wide open looks for threes, but because he's a veteran and he knows his role and he has a high basketball IQ, if Tatum or Brown is at the top, and it's been Tatum a couple times in his first couple games, he'll be open and he will kick it to Tatum. And I think it's just funny to see because on any other team, that's probably exactly what you're told to do is, hey, the best player on the court, kick him the ball. But I'm just laughing to myself thinking Missoula is going to tell this guy, that's your shot. So for now, we have Torrey Craig deferring to Jason Tatum, which I always think is a good thing. But eventually he's going to start shooting those as well. And another thing just on Tatum quickly, you mentioned that, he might have had one bad shot today or something like that. But I think something I've noticed with Tatum is even in transition that he used to pull up for threes and he still does it and it still drives people nuts. But watch how he does it this season compared to last season, how he shoots a lot of his threes this season compared to last season. He's been with Drew Hanlon for, 15 years almost. He's 25, but it feels like they've been together forever. I think this is something that Tatum has really worked on this year is his balance. He is way more straight up and down with his threes. He lands cleaner. He just seems way more in control. So although the looks aren't always falling, I just think everything Tatum is doing this year looks more polished, more professional. And that was just something that stood out to me today. They were on a fast break and they kicked it to him on the left wing. And normally he's kind of falling, almost leaning when he's taking that three. And he looked like Ray Allen. He looked straight up and down. And I was just like, he's a consummate professional. He just continues. Those little things are what makes the great players even better. And that stood out to me today.
So let's talk about Jason Tatum and how he's viewed around the NBA, because Jason Tatum had some quotes in the last week, I think I read. I cut and paste them from somebody's aggregation, I'm sure. Tatum said, quote, "Since I've gotten in the league, it's just about trying to get better every single year. I'm very accomplished at a young age, but the truth is I envision myself as one of those guys. LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. I want the next generation to view me as that. I always want to be the best. And he's, in my opinion, the best Celtic ever, referring to Larry Bird. Bird did it the right way. He's a great guy to chase in a sense. Even if I never reach that, maybe I do, maybe I don't. If you aspire to chase that guy, referring to Larry Bird, it comes with a level of focus and motivation every single day to be the best that you can. So, Jason Tatum and how he's viewed around the league. It right now on Basketball Reference, Jason Tatum is listed as number 5 in MVP voting behind Jokic, SGA, Giannis, and Karl Anthony Towns. So Tatum is a top 5 player in the league. Last 3 seasons, 6th, 4th, and 6th in MVP voting. He's got the NBA All NBA first team, so that's a top 5 ranking for him. Why is Jason Tatum not talked about more in the Jokic, SGA, Giannis conversation? It always feels like he's a tier down. Steph Curry is always talked about, LeBron, and even though they're on their back 9, Durant. Why is Jason Tatum, even though he's getting these awards, he's top 4, 5, 6, he's not actually talked about as top 5, 4, 5, 6?
Yeah, for me, I think there's a couple reasons. I think the roster is a big part of it, unfortunately. And not unfortunately, obviously, you want the Celtics to be as good as possible, but I think his roster gets held against him. And to those people, I'd say Jason Tatum's roster is good. It's very good. It's elite. He's still the most elite player on an elite roster, which you could argue is a tough thing to do as well. He leads the team in points, rebounds, I think assists, like every statistical category. Jason Tatum is basically leading the Celtics. So I almost wonder if we get to a point where it's going to be, are the Celtics relying too much on Jason Tatum? Like eventually
Yes.
that and they are. If you look at it, they kind of are. His usage rating is, when it's really high, they're unbelievable, the best team in basketball, but it's just, can it last is another argument. But I think for Jokic, I think there is a little Jokic fatigue. I think Tatum is not the big personality that people want. So I think that's why the SGA thing has really taken off this year. And I like SGA. I think he's the 3rd best player in basketball. I think Jokic is 1. I think Tatum is 2. And I think SGA is 3. Jokic is just, you watch him play. Look at what he's done the last, 3 weeks. He puts up astronomical numbers. It's insane. And yeah, is he, he's not Hakeem defensively, but talk about MVP, most valuable player to their roster. I would have Jokic 1, Tatum 2, just because of, Jokic is the Denver Nuggets right now. But I do think it's the roster, his personality, some, Celtics and Jokic fatigue. And that's why SGA, I think right now is the heavy favorite. And he would be a very deserving, MVP. It's not like he's, undeserving, but I do think the Tatum conversation nationally gets a little carried away.
Okay, so why was LeBron James's teammates not held against him in Miami? Dwayne Wade was the number 5 pick in the country.
Yeah, Dwayne
Kevin
Wade.
Love was the number 1 pick in the country.
Chris Bosh, unbelievable player.
So why was LeBron James's roster not held against him?
Well, I think number one, I would just ask you who hosted the decision. What network was that on?
Okay, that would be Worldwide Leader National Branch.
Yeah, I was going to say that might be some of it, but I also think LeBron was the face of the NBA. I think the NBA is looking for a face right now, and for some reason, even though the jersey sales are there and the championship is there, 3 years in a row, first team All NBA. That means you're a bona fide lock, top 5 player in the world. It does seem that there is some weird Jason Tatum thing. I don't know if it's because he's on the Celtics, if it's because he's, wing dunking and kind of keeps to himself, is a quieter guy. I don't really know. But if you're a Celtics fan and a basketball fan, I don't think there's a better superstar out there. He plays basketball. That's what he does.
He wants to play every night.
He loves basketball. He is a pure hooper. That is literally all he cares about. He shows up, he plays every single night, he gives you something on both ends, and he directly impacts winning on a nightly basis for the Celtics.
All right, so just so we're clear and we're consistent, I'm going to hold Kareem's roster against him. I'm going to hold Julius Erving's roster against him. I'm going to hold Moses Malone's roster against Magic Johnson. I mean, the Showtime Lakers. I got to hold the talent he had around him against him. Barkley didn't have anything. I mean, Shaq had Kobe. so I got to hold that against him, right? Duncan had Greg Popovich, so I got to hold that against him, right? No, okay, all right. My answer is Jason Tatum doesn't have the near moments that everybody else does. He's steady. There's probably like a Duke hatred. Tatum was the number 3 pick in the country, not the number 1 pick. Jaylen Brown definitely had more moments, quote unquote, in the playoffs. And Jaylen Brown should have been the MVP of the playoffs last year. But if Tatum doesn't get the coverage, Jaylen Brown doesn't have those moments. And that's the thing that people can't kind of grip. But to your point, Skaz, I do think that Jason Tatum, if you've watched him play, and I know his points per game are down a little bit, everything else is about where it usually is. He just feels more professional. He just feels like he's having a better season, just from looks of it. Like he's making the right call. He's reading the defense properly. He's doing all those those little things that, those details that that are hard to recognize from the casual viewer's point of view, but nerds, dorks like us, we kind of pick up on them, like your shooting thing. Like that's such a great little detail. I think those are the things that are why Tatum's playing so well and doing so well. Anything else on Tatum before we move on to my final point?
No, I'm 100% with you. I think this is as complete a basketball player as Jason Tatum has ever looked in the NBA. I think he makes just about every right decision. He's, take any matchup 1 through 5. I think he's playing, at as good of a level as we've ever seen him play.
Skaz, we need a fight at some point on this podcast. Like I was thinking about this, and we've done probably like 16, 17 of these. We haven't had a fight, right?
Not a good one.
We're in this relationship. We're in the Screen Teamers relationship, and we haven't had that first fight yet. So we're not sure how we're going to react to it. So we need a fight at some point. I don't know how that's going to happen, but
probably be Peyton Pritchard related if I had to guess, but we'll see.
If he doesn't win 6th man of the year, like a lot of people are going to be mad. And number 1 might be Joe Murray because he got him at like plus 50 to 1 or whatever it was.
5,000 or something. Yeah,
plus 5,000. I got Bregman for Red Sox bets at plus 6,000 for MVP. So
love it.
Garrett, wrong podcast. My final thing, Skaz, is the NBA All-Star game.
Woof.
It needs to be fixed. Draymond Green is right, 100%. I'm so glad he said it on their broadcast, by the way. LeBron doesn't play because of soreness, but Wemby plays with a blood clot.
Yep. Yeah, not great.
Right, like there's an argument that with LeBron's success that he's actually ruined the sport. And it's like, how do you fix the NBA All-Star game, right? They trotted out this new format, much like the NHL did, right? Like the NHL has this amazing 4 nations tournament. It gets 9 million viewers, big atmosphere in Boston, Montreal, historic record, most views ever watching an NHL game. NBA tries a 4-team tournament, it fails flat. And here's what I think the difference is. It's passion. It's passion. The NHL has passion, it has hate, it has rivalries. In the NBA, where is the hate? Where is the hate, Skaz? The NBA is closer to pro wrestling. It's about getting the casual fan to stop and watch because of some entertaining moment, a dunk, a great 3-point shot. Now, well, I mean, not really, but dorky basketball people are like, oh my God, that extra pass, like pants off, give it to me. But the NHL is kind of more about like grit and grind and passion. And while the NBA is going for the broadcast, the NHL is like, we're good narrowcasting. And if we pick up some broader fans, like we're cool with that. But this was said, this is an OG Felger and Maz reference. Sports are at their best when there is hate. So where is the hate in the NBA?
Yeah, I'm with you. The NBA All-Star game is broken. I think there is no hate in the NBA, J Stu, if you want the short answer.
Marcus Smart.
They're all
people hate
AAU
Marcus
friends.
Smart.
Yeah,
people hated Lucas Scola.
Maybe Jokic tossing one of the Thompson brothers around was the last time we had real hate in the NBA. I saw Chris Paul and Kevin Durant getting into it the other night, 2 of the biggest bitches in NBA history. So that was, that's That's always good to see. But for the NBA All-Star game, I think there's two things they could do. One, I've seen floated around Twitter a ton this past week, and the second one I literally just thought of, and you can tell me if it's stupid or not. But the
Oh, I
first
will.
one, yeah, I know you will. The first one being, do they go international? Do they do like a Team USA versus the world? Do they do Europe and then other countries? Like, is that a possibility? Do you think something like that would work?
So if they did literal four nations, like if they tried to redo what you saw last summer,
Yeah.
where they have USA, Canada, and international teams.
Yeah, I mean Canada could have. I mean SGA, they got some players that they certainly could. Or maybe they do international 3-on-3 or something like that for All Star Weekend. Like I could try and get into that.
And
And
then
then
you have in season Steve Kerr not knowing what to do with Jason Tatum, so giving him a DNP. I'm into it.
yeah, no coaching in the All Star 3-on-3. And then the other idea I had, which I don't know exactly how it would work, but something these guys, I don't know if they care. They probably don't anymore. This might have worked better years ago when college basketball, actually mattered. But what if at All Star Weekend they did like, Dukies versus guys from UNC in Michigan and UCLA? Like it was like an alma mater thing where you got 3 or 4 guys from each college and they suited up as, and the NBA Dukies or the NBA Tar Heels or whatever it was, because you could find 7 schools, 6 schools, whatever you needed, 4 schools, even if that's what it was, and just give the fans something where it's a little different. It's a different vibe. These guys have somewhat of a relationship where they'd be happy to play together and represent the schools. Maybe, who knows? But other than an international kind of thing, or maybe, an alumni thing, I don't know what else you can do at this point to save All-Star Weekend.
So Skaz, I think to modify that idea is you do like what the ACC, the Big 12,
Okay.
the Big 10,
Yeah.
and the SEC. I mean, those are the major conferences.
Yeah.
And you just have to kind of, Tatum has to play with this guy from UNC
Yeah. There you
and
go.
this guy from Florida. And so you regionalize it. That would be my modification to it, is that you take the big conferences and, but Jaylen Brown, where did Jaylen Brown play? He played at SoCal,
Cal
right?
Berkeley, yeah.
Cal Berkeley. So where does he fit into it?
I don't know. Yeah,
Right?
and then maybe we get like a guy like Jokic and Luka. Is there a world team or something? They just get one international team or something like that. We're workshopping here. We're trying anything.
Like this is a live workshop. I'm fine. I like the idea. I like the concept of it. I do like I like the idea of it. And then it's like, do college basketball fans then gravitate to it? Do you put the rivals aside, or do you try to stack the rivals? The other one that I thought of was Caitlin Clark comes in.
Yeah.
And she plays part of it, and they do 3-on-3 stuff, or street ball, or NBA 2K. There's something NBA 2K like that they could, instead of the dunk challenge, maybe it's that you watch them play video games now, or maybe you just watch them do card breaks. Joe Murray's hosting LeBron James and Giannis doing card breaks now.
Yeah, get Brady over there too. He's all involved in that stuff.
But no, it needs fixing. It needs passion, Skaz. That's what I think it needs. It needs passion. It needs some sort of passion. College rivalries, maybe that helps, or AAU at rivalries.
There you go. Yeah, maybe like
that helps.
Where they're from. I saw someone in our chat say Team Atlanta versus Team St. Louis. Maybe areas of the country where these guys were born. You do Northeast versus Northeast. We got to wait for Cooper Flag to show up before we have any. Michael Carter Williams isn't out there anymore, so Nerlens Noel might need some help. But something like that, I think is a good idea.
Somebody else in the chat said, well, maybe it's all defensive team against, and the modification on that is you take the all NBA first team, you put them against the all NBA second team. The all NBA third team is your third team, and what would be, players 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, the all NBA fourth team, that becomes the fourth team, and you kind of match them all up, and you try to, the hated number one team.
Yeah.
And you try to knock them all off. There's some workshop ideas here, but the NBA's got to do something, because but it starts with LeBron. LeBron's not passionate. He's just kind of there, right? He wants the participation trophy, except when it comes to All-Star Weekend because he's sore. Oh, I'm sore. Oh man, I'm sore.
A LeBron conspiracy theory I saw, which I know you're a big fan of.
Oh, hey, let me put
Anytime
it.
we
Hang
get
on.
a
Where's my tinfoil hat?
Yeah, but the reason I don't buy into this one is because I don't believe he's retiring next year. But what I saw was LeBron's, saw the Heat on the All-Star game and wasn't going to play anyways, but he showed up as like kind of a good faith thing, even though people were upset about it. And now next year, he's going to announce it's his farewell season and his final All-Star game, and people will be like, "Oh, LeBron saved the All-Star game playing in his final year." I don't think he's retiring next year, so I'm out on it. But I did see that floated around on the Brown checkmark Twitter sources that LeBron will try and claim that he saved the All-Star game when he plays in his last one.
So on LeBron, I think he plays 2 more years.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And I think that that's because, in part, I think it has something to do with the Celtics sale. Because remember, he's part of Fenway Sports Group. He's going to be part owner of an expansion team, we think, in Vegas, unless the Mavericks move to Vegas, which apparently is now on the table.
I can't see it happening, but I have seen that too.
If you saw the movie Major League, you have the owner who can't get the new stadium that she wants, so she just tanks out the team so that they can void the lease with the city and so on and move the team. I don't think the NBA lets that happen. But you got money to put up a fight for it. But I do think that the NBA is trying to get $6 billion for the Celtics. And I don't think that that's there yet. I don't think that there's anybody in the world who wants to pay $6 billion for the Celtics.
At least not for, 51% of it or whatever it is, 48%, whatever it ends up being.
I still go to this Reddit theory that Bezos is trying to buy the Celtics, the Bruins, and the Garden. I don't know why. It makes so much sense. Where you get the Amazon guy, or maybe it's one of these casino guys, where they buy it and then they knock down some building adjacent and they build a casino. You invest $13 billion and you own everything.
Yeah, and I think the owner, the quote unquote owner of the Celtics, I think it's really only like in the 30s for percentage wise to be the majority owner. So I think it's somewhere in there. So yeah, I'll be very interested in what that number, ends up being.
I think the NBA will too. Skaz, any closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are the Celtics are in really good shape. I'm impressed. I think Drew Holiday looked refreshed after the break. That was one of the bigger concerns. I'm interested to see, how Al Horford looks in the second half. I think he needs to be managed, and Porzingis as well. But no, Stu, I feel maybe as good about this Celtics team as I have all year. I think they look great today.
I do too. I feel really encouraged from the last 2 games. Like they're focused, they're locked in. Their defense, I feel like, has been good, and they're still getting their open shots. And make or miss league, and we'll roll from there. So we will be back with you next week, and presumably every Sunday from now until the Celtics are eliminated, except for one. That would be Easter Sunday, because I will be in Vegas for WrestleMania in April.
Yes.
That will be the only Sunday that I would be on the books to miss from now until July 1st. Yes, I said July 1st because the Celtics are repeating. How's that for a Green Teamer?
Love it.
All right, guys. I'll see you in the building tomorrow. Everybody else, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll check you out next week.